I want to talk a little bit about winning and learning. And the first thing I want to say is that a winning, learning attitude guarantees success. And I'll give you an example. In the last 5 or so years, I've listened to 500 unabridged Audible books while cooking, while driving, while hot tubbing, while flying on a plane, while lounging on the beach. I love learning. And 90% of those audiobooks are not specifically relevant to my life. Meaning if I read 3 Google biographies about the evolution of Google and its inception and rise to the present point, that's nothing. I'm not going to learn a single thing about irrigation. I'm not going to learn about soil amending. I'm not going to learn how to write a better contract for installing a stone wall. So there's an extrapolation and extraction process. I'm going to see how they did it there, and I'm going to ask myself, is there anything that I can do differently because of what I've learned here? And what I've learned is that in any book that I listen to, there are usually 1, 2, or 3 good, actionable ideas that if I interpret them for my business and my life, I can take action and my life will improve. That's what you want to cultivate if you want to rapidly grow. And the reason is that you're not going to find, meaning in all of those 500 books, not one is from a top landscaper mentoring me. That'd be great. I would buy that book in a heartbeat. They're just not there. So there's extrapolation. Now, that means there might be 100 ideas and I'm just acting on 2. That's enough. That's enough. Now, there's also an ability to learn in the negative. And what I mean by this is there may be a landscaper, a maintenance person who is late, who overcharges the client, who's irritating to talk to. I've met them. And yet, if you have a conversation and you identify what you don't like about the way they run their business, you can improve your business by doing the opposite. You can interpret, I can't stand this. I don't want anything to do with that. What's the opposite of that? Well, the opposite is this. And there's always room for improvement. Now, if I can find 2 or 3 decent ideas from a Google biography, or when I read Henry Ford's biography, the founder of the Ford Motor Company, when I was 14 years old, I learned about a way of learning through mentors rather than going to college. That saved me at least $5,000 in tuition fees, and it saved me at least 2 years of my life, and it made my life 5 times more interesting because I love learning by doing rather than learning by textbook. And it actually benefited my knowledge. And I learned that from a dead car maker, Henry Ford Sr., founder of the Ford Motor Company. And so if I can extract that and win in a way that has added more than $100,000 of profits and 500% of well-being over a period of years by a dead automaker, then if you have that mindset, you can learn something from a landscaper such as myself, if you want to, if you're willing to do the mental work. And that's certainly something that is a law of physics. If you don't invest energy, you don't get something back. If you don't plant seed, grass doesn't grow. So if you want something, work smart, but be willing to pay the price. And what I can say is that my goal, and certainly if my younger self had learned any of this from my success courses, etc., my goal is to make it about 10 times to 20 times richer. So you could easily learn what I've learned by talking with mentors over a 10-year period and reading 500 books. But you can learn it much faster, much more cost-effectively, meaning the cost on Audible, if you buy lots of books, is $9.95. So for 500 books, that's $5,000. And that's also 5,000 hours. That's a lot of time to extract those kernels and things that benefit me. And so I want to encourage you to set up a game where you win when you lose and you win when you win. And what I mean by that is when you encounter something you don't like, extrapolate the opposite and do that and do it more, and you will win. When you encounter something that you like, copy it and you will win. Once you've copied it and won, figure out how to do it better. Use it as a springboard and you will win even more. I had a terrible experience with a therapist that ended up giving me PTSD about 5 years ago. It's a long and drawn out story, but when you're in a very vulnerable relationship, as you can be with a therapist, they can be incredibly beneficial or incredibly destructive. And as it turned out, this therapist had a devastating impact. Now, how do you win with that is the question. Well, once I grasped that this therapist was so off base that a good metric for determining what was the right thing to do was the opposite. Meaning if this therapist said this, then the opposite was probably true. If this therapist did this, the opposite was the best thing to do. Once I grasped that this therapist was just backwards so completely, all I had to do was do the exact opposite of what they did, what they said, etc., and my life got better. And so that's actually how I met my wife. Was I did everything the exact opposite. I realized that a profoundly destructive person was a map in reverse. It would be like if you figured out that every time you listened to Google Maps, you went in the exact opposite direction of where you wanted to go. Then whenever Google Maps said go left, you would just go right and you'd get where you needed to go. And so you can learn through incompetence and through enemies and through obstacles that get in your way. And you can learn through successes. If you can get that mindset working for you, it doesn't matter what you encounter. You will grow, you will win, and your life will get better, whether you consider it fair, whether it's reasonable, whether it's what you want or not. Your life will get better because you're willing to learn and you're willing to work and you're willing to grow regardless of what life throws at your, to disrupt your plan. So good luck with that. It's these courses that I've written, the Landscape Success Course 1 and 2, etc., are things that would have been wonderful for me to have access to instead of reading 500 books and all that. But I don't regret the breadth of knowledge and all of that that gives, and it's part of evolution. It's always a little bit easier for the next generation, for the next person, and that's how life grows.